Hello, my name is Mara Crow, and I will be talking about the verbal lore I found from different generations of Boy Scouts. The people I interviewed were a variety of different people from the Boy Scouts. First, I interviewed Andrew Jenkins, who you can see is in the bottom left. And he is an Eagle Scout who was in the Scouts for 5 to 6 years until he aged out. Then I interviewed two older generation people in Andrew's family. First is Ron Jenkins, Andrew's grandfather, who was a Boy Scout when he was younger. He was in the Scouts from middle school until he stopped about in junior year of high school. Second is Kevin Jenkins, Andrew's father, who you can see is in the top right. Was a troop leader for about 15 years, and then he left once Andrew aged out of the group. And then lastly is Ben Crow, who was a Boy Scout for 3 to 4 years, who left his troop once he lost interest in the Scouts. Now, I was told many stories from these four men, and I would categorize as stories they were told within the troop, stories they were told like while they were at summer camp, and then like specific story, and then some stuff that they told each other over the campfire. The stories that they were told in the troop were mostly stories about specifically the founder of Boy Scouts and like his military achievements he achieved before he founded the Boy Scouts. And one of the big ones that specifically Andrew told me was when he was able to fend off an entire army by making the army think he had more men on his side than he actually did. And then another story that the kids are told is about the Order of an Arrow, which is a society within the Boy Scouts. And how the story goes, a summation of the story is a chief's son has to go around and ally the other tribes. And so the son decides to volunteer to do that. And the other men join him with volunteering. And so the son and those men became the Order of the Arrow. And then, well, Kevin kind of remembered different stories that he told the boys, and those stories were mostly about patriotism, or like they were stories that were meant to teach a lesson or some morals for the boys. Ben actually remembered very little of the stories he was told, and he only really remembered a story that taught him the 3 core values of Boy Scouts, and if you kept these values, you would be a Boy Scout for the rest of your life. When I asked Ron about these stories, he actually didn't give me a whole lot of information. The only thing he really told me is he was told stories, but they were for young men. And now the stories at summer camp served a different purpose, and most of them basically for Andrew served as to waste time. And one of the main examples that you can see more in the handout in the bottom is a story consisting of a man going through many colored doors, and you go through a very repetitive process of him going up and down stairs to get the key for a certain door. Like there's a red door, so he has to get the red key all the way at the top, at the outside. And repetitiveness. There is another type of story where it's more of a very long-winded joke. And one of the stories that he told me that was like that was about a boy who goes through his swimming career and faces through like a lot of hardships. And so through his swimming career, he gets to up to Olympics for like diving. So when he goes for his last dive in the ocean, he ends up diving into the top of a submarine that was surfacing. And when people are asking if he's okay, he responds, "This isn't the first time I've faced hardships in my life." Ben wasn't really told these kind of stories. He more of got, like personal stories that the kids would tell him about like stuff that happened beforehand or like stuff that's recent, stuff like that. Kevin also heard kids kind of telling like funny stories or something interesting that they found out recently or like before. And then Ron restated that he was told stories that were meant for young men. Now, while campfire stories, people normally think are like ones that boys tell each other about something creepy or silly, but in Andrew's troop specifically, those didn't happen. Instead, the boys did skits for each other. The most popular one that you can see like the full version down below is the invisible bench, which performed many times that it was banned. The boys one of the boys start off sitting in the air, and then one boy comes up and asks him what he's doing. And he says, "Well, I'm sitting on an invisible bench." And so the new boy sits with the other boy. And this keeps happening as each boy comes in, they sit with the others on the invisible bench until the last one comes up and he asks them what they're doing. And they respond, "I'm sitting on an invisible bench." And he says, "Well, I moved it over there." And thus they all fall down that were sitting on the supposed invisible bench. Kevin supported Andrew in this idea where he was saying that boys would perform skits with each other over like the campfire instead of stories. But they would also tell jokes, and like specifically sometimes they would get a person to tell a joke and then just kind of run off as soon as they were done. Very silly. And then Ben told me his troops don't really do anything of that sort of telling stories of the campfire. The campfire was mostly used for cooking and nothing else. And then Ron told me the boys would tell each other like jokes over the campfire. Now, I asked them if there were any songs that they sung or any of all, and campfires, and like Andrew said, yes, they did sing songs. They did some marching songs when they were going to and fro, but it was like a very simple left, right, left, nothing real extra with them. And there was also songs that where they were taught, and one that Andrew sang for me was called Alice, Where Are You Going? And you can see the full song at the bottom in the handout. Kevin told me that he didn't teach the boys very many songs or chants in general because that's not how their troop wanted to do it. But apparently Ron's troop back in the day would sing many of songs to the point where they had a trumpet accompanying them with each song. And Ron did sing me a song, but from the lyrics he gave me, I could not find the song at all. And it was like Pahi Dihi, something like that. And I couldn't find it for the life of me, the whole song. And Ben didn't even mention anything about songs at all. When I asked for like some advice that maybe like the older troops would ask the younger troops, Andrew said they mostly gave advice about Eagle Scout and how you need to keep up with it and like make sure you don't get behind on the work for it, and along with like what to do for your big project at the end, and even to the point where like they would tell you go to like Lowe's to get your like materials for your project because you can get a discount there and thus getting more for your money. Ben remembers mostly advice about basic things that Boy Scouts need to do for a camp, like how best way to set up your tent, best way to cook your food, and like the best places to go find sticks to make your fire. And then Kevin told me that the advice he would give to the younger kids is like leadership techniques to teach them, so that way they could teach the younger kids what they were taught by their older scouts. Ron didn't even have an advice for the scouts that they would tell from each other. After all of this information I have gathered, I have a few conclusions. First is the difference of the space of the Boy Scouts between the younger and older generations. Ron wouldn't inform me about any of the stories or advice or any of the jokes that he was told when he was in the Boy Scouts. This tells me that these stories are not meant to be told outside of men. And since I myself am not a man or presenting of masculine at all, he did not feel like I would be able to understand what he told me and thus leave me out of the stories. While like Andrew and Ben, the younger generation of the Scouts, they told me the stories they were told that they thought were like, important or something interesting enough that were like retained to the Boy Scouts. This tells me that the male-only space the Boy Scouts used to have in the older generations isn't there anymore. The Scouts aren't really using this space to express their anxieties or any problems that they have about being a man. And it's being more, and those like anxieties and other things are being presented in different stories for the outside areas outside the Boy Scouts. The information that compared to an Eagle Scout to a Boy Scout could remember when they were Boy Scouts is vastly different. While Andrew, Eagle Scout, remembered more about the things about an Eagle Scout and more stories and things he was told, comparatively to Ben, who only really remembered a couple things and not much outside of that. And it shows people who were able to get all the way up to Eagle Scout had a deeper experience of the Boy Scouts compared to people who left before they could even get the Eagle. And the last comparison I could find from this information was comparatively to the adults who were running the troop to the kids who are in the troop, is remembering things more about what they were teaching the kids and what they saw of the kids, but nothing of like them being a part of the group, technically. And he remembers more of the advice and stories that the adults would tell the boys themselves, but not much of like what the boys would tell each other. He didn't even remember like any of the skits that the boys would tell to the troop. Overall, it seems that as the Boy Scouts continue with time, the stories and other advice is becoming more basic and proven by the lack of personal stories Ben was able to tell me at his time with the Boy Scouts. Thank you very much. This will be the end of my presentation. If you have want to see anything else, there'll be hand down at the bottom.